truth and preservation of our soul shine. I can feel it, yours and mine. Close your eyes and witness it inside. In your bones, you will know. Trust and let go, and let it flow.
Welcome to another episode of All Things in the Name of Love. Today I have with me dear soul sister Michelle Erickson, who I recently met and we just clicked, among other things. Aside from being a multi-dimensional being of light and a former educator, she's also a guide for psychedelic assisted journeys, but that's just a fraction of who she is. And I'm just so grateful that you agreed to be on the show with me. And so thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Sophia. It's such a delight to be here in this space with you. I'm really excited for our conversation today to see what unfolds.
Me too. So tell me a little bit about your spiritual journey, because I mean, you're fascinating.
Yeah, I came in as a little being who came in with a mission. And I remember being 3 years old and being in my room and having recollections of living in Egypt and having been of service then. And I remember being as a young one, like I would go at age 3, 4, 5 to anybody's church. Like my parents are quite atheist. And I think I was the weird little kid who just wanted to go find God in all of the places. And that has definitely continued for me, where I really feel a deep connection and relationship to that which is so much greater and wiser and expansive than this small human form. And call by whatever name. I think the name is far less important than the expression and the experience. Um, and so my journey has taken me from traditional, I spent some time, not a whole lot of time, but in some traditional Christian um, expression and liturgy and schooling, and then moving into Buddhism. I've always been interested in esoteric arts. I think I'm the kind of person who's always looking for what are the commonalities and where is that feeling? Where's that emotion coming from? That grace and that sense of deep connection and belonging. And I can probably find that just in about any room that I go to. So, yeah. And
I
it
love
led me to working in psychedelic spaces through my own healing and experience, and then finding so many more avenues and dimensions and frequencies where we can tap into the mystery and the magic that is source and creation. And so that's the work that I do currently. I hold guided psychedelic space, I do teaching around that, and I'm also an ordained minister.
I love all that. And those are just, again, there are elements of the I am that you are.
Mhm.
And I love that because like from what I've microdosed, and I felt this like awareness of the me that is greater than this me.
Yes.
And it's like my left brain, because I know you're a former academic too, loves to try to figure out, right?
Right.
And yet the heart space is where all the magic comes in. And my sense with, especially psilocybin, because it's such a sacred plant, although the cacao that I had with you, that took me to places I hadn't experienced. Like
Right.
all the plant medicine, like regardless of what it is, if it's like legal or, well, all of it's legal now, but like, you know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't have a stigmatism to it, like cacao, not, but powerful,
Mhm.
especially with spikenard. Oh my goodness. Not to
Right.
drink, but like
Right.
having spikenard on my forehead, I almost couldn't drive home.
Yes, yes. Well, these are such tremendous allies for us. I think what we're really about right now, what's happening in the world, is these plants are really stepping forward to guide us and usher us into the new world paradigm, to help us move through the traumas, the limiting beliefs, the anger, all those negative, weighty dense experiences that we have ancestrally, we might have in our own bodies, we certainly have in the collective. And the teachings that I've received and even from the plants themselves are really that they are here to be of service for our awakening, for our deepening, for our connection, for our remembering that we are nature, that we're not separate. Nature's not out there. Nature's in here. And you know, and you spoke to this connection between the heart and the brain, or the heart and the mind, really. And I think the mind is an incredible playground. And so many of us come into form to be in that, like, oh my goodness, what can I create? What can I make up? What stories are floating through? And what can I catalyze and alchemize? And one of my teachers says that the longest road is the road from the heart to the mind. And that's really, I think, where these practices and these deep ceremonies and rituals that we are renovating, we are making new for the modern time, where they come into being is to guide us and support us and enhance and sustain what we're here to do, like who we came here to be, to help remove the noise, to help really help us access our I am. Yeah.
I
In
feel
so
it's
many ways.
yeah, because like I remember, the thought just came in my head. I used to live in Portland, and there was a Native American who picked wild mushrooms, and I go every week, and he said, "Which one is calling to you?" And I love that practice because I tune into the little basket to find out which one wanted me, and I could feel it. And my former partner would just look back and kind of smirk at me because he didn't get it. But this gentleman and I were just like, he was like feeling my native energy from previous lifetimes because I'm not in this one, but he felt that connection that I had, and he's helping me remember it. And it was just such a gift to like tune in because it helped me connect more with trees and rocks and streams and rivers and all the things, because he gave me permission to slow down and feel that energy.
Right, right. Well, it's said that everything speaks and everything wants to be spoken to. And what you're just explaining is this beautiful awakening of the relationship and this remembering that, you know, you can go out into the forest and there's certain trees that will ask for your attention, right? If we're doing more listening than talking, right? There are certain flowers that might ask you to stop, or things that ask to be picked up because they're wanting a relationship as well. And I think that we as living beings are probably the only ones who've forgotten that we're all in deep relationship with each other. And we know that down to, at a subatomic structure, we actually are in deep relationship and sharing and in this reciprocal relationship. And then this element, right, the mind often helps us move into separation so that we can return into that unity consciousness. I think there's this dance that we've been moving through in humanity. As
Mhm.
you said yourself, you came here to understand separation.
Yeah.
And we've really been muddling and working with that for thousands of years, haven't we?
Yeah, 100%. And like I remember when I was like getting my PhD and like looking at all the factors of like what created the programming, and it was like electricity. Who had electricity? Electricity. And if you lived along a river in Maine in 1905, you had electricity. If you lived 2 towns away, you didn't get to 1940. So like there's separation. There's separation. Like it's constant, and I've seen it morph into where we are now, where all of the separation is artificial. It feels real because of our belief systems, but those belief systems are epigenetic, they're societal, they're educational, and when we peel back those layers and we see that no, this tree, like I remember going in a forest with the daughter of a friend of mine a couple of years ago down in California, and she's like, "What's this tree's name?" It never occurred to me to ask a tree's name. So all of a sudden, all of them are telling me their names, and I'm just it was really cool. And I'm like, okay, I can't, like, we did like 100 trees, and I'm like, okay, this is overwhelming me now. You need to stop. I'm grateful that you asked, but like she was the one that was like opening up that, like, hey, why don't you ask their names? And I'm like, of course they have names.
Yes. 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 You know, we were just in the redwoods. We were holding a retreat this weekend. There were several of us deep in the redwoods in California. It was absolutely exquisite. And somebody brought along this little device, and I don't know the name of it, but if you attach it to the tree itself or to the plant, it
Mhm.
sings, right? It turns
Yeah.
the energetic frequency into sound. And it was the most exquisite, extraordinary experience because if you come to the plant, the sound would change. If you touched, it would change. If you thought certain thoughts, it would change. And again, I think it's this, we're at this really exciting time in history right now where there are more technologies, there's more availability. And I also think mushrooms are their own technology. So I don't want us to
Yeah.
think that technologies only comes in the form of something that's electric or that has, a battery in it
Oh,
that
we're
we
technology.
call like a phone or anything. But I think these are technologies that are reminding us like this beautiful sound and experience. Like bees and dragonflies see the world completely differently than we do, right? So it feels to me like every creature, every being is taking this experience and expression of the world and sending it back to source. And then when we step into that line or that expression, then we get to share in that. And that's really amazing, isn't it?
I love that you speak to that because, like, last week I was at somebody's house and I went outside and this yellow jacket just flew onto their fire pit. And there happened to be a day there where there was a lot of geoengineering going on. And I just looked at yellow jackets are maligned in the world, right? Because they like their sovereignty and they don't like anyone bugging them. But we perceive it as they're mean, which is silly. But so I'm just looking at this guy. I'm like, I'm so sorry, man. I'm so sorry that I happen to be part of the species that's hurting yours. I'm hurt. That this species is hurting me too. But like, I know about it, and you don't. You're just getting affected by it. So I'm so sorry. And he was just like, wow, you're like not scared of me. I'm like, no, I'm not scared of you, man. I'm having compassion. And he was just like, that's new. And I'm like, oh, but I see you, like, and I'm sorry. And he was just like, wow, thank you.
Wow. Wow. I love that. And it's that insight, right? This ability to really perceive from more than our human eyes. Really, I think what you're speaking to is perceiving from your heart,
Yeah.
which to my mind and from all the teachings that I've received, this is what we're here for, right? We're here to remember to be guided by the heart. And this is the portal. This is the way through. This is the way in. This is the way out. This is the connecting,
Yeah.
the magic and mystery of our hearts, way beyond our physical hearts, right? And what a beautiful story that you would connect with a being, like you said, who's often maligned and have this moment of synchronicity of witnessing each other. And that's really profound. Yeah.
It feels like, you know, we all have this gift, but like I understand animals. Like I'm actually hearing, like I can interpret them now because I'm just more present with them. And so, like yesterday, one of the dogs I'm with right now was being petulant, and the human mom said, "No, don't do this," and she just went, "I don't think you're going to tell me what to do." And I heard the thought process. I was like, "Wow, okay."
Did she feel you listening in?
She watched me,
Uh-huh.
and I said it out loud. I was like, "Well, you just got told off." She was like, "Okay." Because I mean, it was just so amusing because like they know that I can hear them, and anyone
Mhm.
can. It's not any special talent I have. I'm just open to it.
Right. Right.
And so because they innately feel this, like I've had dogs come up to me because right here is
Mhm.
kitty meridian. One of the dogs this week actually walked up before I even did anything else and stuck her chest out for me to rub her meridian, her kitty meridian. I was like, "How do you know I know that?" And she's like, "I'm from Syria." And I was like, "Oh, okay. You know I can do this." And she's like, yeah. And so like the 4 days I was with her, I was just rubbing her kidney meridian constantly because she loved it. And she'd let me know when she wanted it. And I'm like, that is so amazing.
And how much easier isn't it? Like when we can really tune in and remember that we know how to speak to each other without words, right? I think like so many of the practices right now are there to help us. And I love what you said, like what you do, other people can do as, or other people can do what you do as well. Because I think any of these practices that we're talking about really are things that as humans we have done for thousands, tens of thousands of years because we didn't have the electricity. We didn't have agriculture in the way that we do now with a refrigerator that we could open or a store we could go to, right? We really had to rely on what was around us and we had to build relationships and we had to be in deep listening and be in this deep relationship, whether it's is the weather coming and reading the clouds and understanding the energies and the movement of the birds and the animals through space to there's a deep relationship uh, I think between one of my teachers is Native American and he grew up on the Siletz Reservation down the road here. And he talks about this deep relationship that he had when he was out hunting. And
Mm,
so it's almost as if it were a call and response that there is this connecting point and the animal is willing to offer itself up so that life can continue because they don't have the same ego structure that we do, right? They know that they're part of something bigger. And then the charge of the person, the hunter, then is to really be in prayer for that animal and to thank it and to be in gratitude. And that's that reciprocity that keeps the wheel turning. I think it's
mm,
just really beautiful. And here we are remembering these practices and relearning and renovating them for a new age.
mhm. I like that you speak to that because we're in this time in consciousness where um, it's this interesting. I'm just tuning into this. It's an interesting balance of ancient traditions and Atlantean technologies. That's what I just heard. So it's like blending them so we don't repeat Atlantis.
Right, right, right,
Because what I feel is the hubris of Atlantis of and just like, oh well, we're da 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 and da 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 da, and that's what ended the fall. That's what brought the fall because we got too arrogant.
right, right.
And I was on Atlantis when it fell, and at that point, the priests and priestesses were relegated to like certain parts, but we weren't part of the conversation anymore.
Hmm.
And so the arrogance overtook the balance. And so as we're bringing in this more divine feminine energy, because that's the nurturing, that's the relationship, that's the slowing down, that's the beauty of the interconnectivity of all. Um, Bringing that balance into healthy feminine, healthy masculine energies is what I see what we're stepping into.
Right, right. No, that sounds really beautiful. I think you're really onto something there. So thank you guys for bringing that in this moment
Ah,
that we're not reclaiming the traditional or indigenous past. And we all, I just want to, for a second, pause on that word indigenous. Depending on which context we're in, it has different meanings. But I want to say we are all indigenous to somewhere. So my people from this body, this DNA, were from Northern Europe, from Germany and from Denmark. And we have our own practices that include drumming and singing and shamanic work and working with mushrooms. And what happened to us in Northern Europe is we were burned. Right. Well, the church stamped us out in a myriad of ways, that wisdom tradition. And so I think it's really important to understand, like, if we're being trained in a certain tradition that perhaps is not our birth tradition, to honor that, to know how to walk in that path, to know how to speak to it. And in that case, we use indigenous and traditional, but also rather than using that word to separate, because I think often it's used to separate, like you're not indigenous, so you can't sage somebody, you can't, and it's like actually that's not what the sage tells me and that's not what my teachers tell me. So I think being in that more receptive state, so we're taking these beautiful ancestral traditions and we're revitalizing them.
Mm.
We are putting new life and energy, because you're absolutely right. They hold this cauldron, this beautiful sacred feminine, this energy of receiving, of reciprocity, of tending to, and then balancing that with the sacred masculine, right? Because that is potent as well. And so we need both of these energies, this energy and this energy. They're both part of the cosmos. And I really feel like we're in a time where we are creating this beautiful expression where they both can coexist and thrive and support each other, as we're moving through these really chaotic times right now.
Yeah. And it's, you know, the gift of chaos
Mm.
is you break up the old, and through chaos comes the new.
Right, right.
And so I've been hearing a few people on YouTube that are talking about these doom scenarios. I'm like, well, that's not my reality. Like, that's a potentiality for sure, but that's not the one I'm focusing on. I'm focusing on creating the new.
Right.
And the new for me is magical. And so what do I choose to focus on? Like, I choose harmony, I choose collaboration, I choose unity consciousness, I choose unconditional love. And so that's what's showing up in my life. And how we focus, you know, where we focus is how our lives unfold.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Right. Where your, what is it? Where your, is it where your attention flows, there your energy goes? I think is that what the
Yeah,
saying is, right? And so, in native traditions in North America, it's called, are you feeding the light wolf or the dark wolf? Right? That we have a choice of where are we putting our energies? What's the reality that we are putting our energies towards?
yeah,
And I also think, Sophia, that we're in a time right now that, we as humans know how to do hard work. We know how to war, we know how to destroy, we know how to make chaos, we know how to do all kinds of things in separation. And we have chosen that path of learning for at least the last 5,000 years, if not longer.
yeah,
We've gotten really adept at that. What I think the invitation right now is, can we move into this invitation of learning through love, of learning through grace, of learning through community, right? Of learning through, I don't have to do all the things myself, which is the old paradigm that I was trained in. I have to do all the things myself, right? And
yeah,
that's separation. And the truth is, boy, when I step into community and we each take a piece of that, how different the whole experience is.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
feel that, so to the listeners, Michelle and I partake in a monthly drum circle in Bend, Oregon. I have witnessed myself taking a drum and standing over the other women, and each woman gets a different beat
Mm.
because I'm channeling it I'm tuning into their frequency, and I'm just tapping into what they need from this vessel. And the energy in that space is so potent. I have a dog that's very impatient, wants to go out. I'm going to pause for a second.
Okay.
But now that I reopened the door, they're like, do we want to go out? Do we want to stay in? Do we want to?
I know.
Okay.
I know. They're like,
Anyways, yeah, that space of really allowing that flow to come in, versus that. I had a dream last night where I heard and I felt the energy in my heart. I'm like, I'm trying so hard. And my I am presence said, you don't need to try. And it was just really deep, like, oh, that's right, I don't anymore. Because that's the old paradigm.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And trying does not feel good to me.
Right.
Being in the state of flow, being in a state of receiving, like when I'm doing something that brings me joy, like I'll give an example, sourdough making. I don't care about the time. I just enjoy the process. I love mixing flowers, so I get like all these different healthy things. It's like it's an art, it's a game, it's play, it's joy.
Right. Yeah. So when we're in joy, right, or when we're in the process, honestly, right, we're not efforting. And I think that, like, I really love your surfacing of that and your whole experience about the somatic body. Let's pause there for a second because I really think the body is the vehicle that shows us what's true and not true for us. So as you were telling the story of beating a different drum beat over every woman, I got total body chills. Right? That is such a yes, that is true. Like
Mhm.
total body chills. And what I have learned for myself as well as a really good efforter, because I'm a Capricorn and I'm a firstborn and I got a PhD and I did all those things, right? I'm such a good efforter that I finally learned to really listen to my body and to feel what a yes feels like, which is open, soft, gentle, and a no is contracted and constricted and pretzeled, and which muscles I will feel it in more than others. And that has been such a powerful teacher for me because
Mm.
many of us spend lifetimes overriding the messages of this body. And what we know about bodies is they can't lie, right? They are the ultimate truth tellers. And I love that we're in a time right now where we can talk about, is your nervous system regulated or dysregulated? Right. There's a place to start, not like how messed up are you today or how exhausted or wait, are you regulated or dysregulated? What do we do? Because what I know to be true, and I can really thank the plants for teaching me this, is that when I can be in surrender and co-creation, when I can be in that flow state, oh my God, what happens and comes through is so far better than what I could have efforted. Right. And then the work, if you will, the work that comes through then is in collaboration. It's shared with
Mhm.
something bigger than myself. It's dynamic, it's expressive, it's playful. um every now and then it becomes tedious if there's like administrative stuff or you have to go and post your Instagram and that's not your thing. I know that's not my thing.
Oh,
so
either.
so right, I have moved away from those spaces, even though there's so much communication that says, oh, if you want to be successful you have to show up and be in this space, and oh, you have to do this many times a week. And I just, that just didn't feel right for me, so I gave that up. And boy, does it feel so much better to be in the creation and co-creation with an intelligence that is far superior to mine, and then all the wisdom that comes through the guides and the beings that I have the pleasure of coming through and working with.
It's such a gift to be able to like a realize that we don't have to do all of it by ourselves, and then b opening up to receiving on a deeper level. Like a couple, this is pretty, like I've known about my I am presence for a while, but to actually embody the awareness of my I am presence is pretty recent. So coming up to last week where I moved 5 times, um, I told my I am presence, I'm like, look, I know I am a fractal of you. Totally get that. And this third dimensional needs support. So like 2 days ago, I moved here. I have been so supported, it's ridiculous. Because I asked.
Yeah, well, that's it, right? There's the deeper relationship, right? The relationship is an energetic exchange back and forth, and if we don't ask, right, we don't receive. And I think that the test is, can you ask without holding an attachment for when is the outcome happening? Is it going to look like what I think it's going to look like, right? To really be in trust and surrender that what I'm asking for out there, that there is my I am presence and or other beings and guides who know myself in this form better than I do, and that they're going to send down to me something that is far superior than what I would have imagined for myself. Like, I love all the ways that you are being met and supported in this now moment until you're resourced for the next expression.
Whatever it is. Yeah. And it's like, so, and it's having the awareness of and the appreciation for it too.
Right. Indeed. Yeah.
because it's like, okay, I needed a week off, which essentially I have because the dogs I'm with are so chill, it's ridiculous. Um, and the space is amazing, and the couple is just, they're awake and just divine and everything. So it's like, okay, this is what I asked for, and I'm so grateful because I
Mhm.
see it.
Beautiful.
And to have that acknowledgement, because like that's part of it too, is like it's not just the asking for, it's the gratitude for.
It is, right? That's the reciprocity,
Mhm.
right? And there's so many ways. I think that we're in a time right now where I love that there's science that has caught up with these practices. Like now, there's proven evidence that a gratitude practice works. It
Mhm.
works to shift our serotonin levels. It works to create more spaciousness. It works to help actually rewire our neurological structure so that the more we are grateful for, the more we see the good things that life has in front of us.
Mhm.
And it creates these massive shifts, right? Um, yeah, I think it's actually really, you and I have both spent a lot of time in the scientific worlds in that methodology. And yeah, I would say it's almost cute that it's finally catching up. And I feel like science is expanding as well.
Yeah.
And that's exciting to see that we're asking broader questions that are deeper and more complex and really willing to look at, I think you and I talked about the telepathy tapes, and there's a woman coming to visit Bend this week called Veda Austin. She's a water researcher, and she
Oh,
had listened to the telepathy tapes, and she does this research with water, and she asked these non-speaking autistics, this is the choice of their word, they call themselves autistics. She asked them to look at these images that she was receiving and the information that these young people generated about what these images are demonstrating about the consciousness of water, which she's only is it like 2 or 3 weeks old. Like this data is 2 or 3 weeks old.
that's
And
so cool.
it's so astonishing. Like I feel like there's these eruptions of new states of consciousness or new ways of knowing are really starting to rise up and bloom, and it's really exciting if we turn our attention into all the goodness that's happening in the field.
Well, even I'll from like just because of all of the solar flares and the Schumann resonance last week, past 2 weeks, all of a sudden I'm ambidextrous. Like
Wow.
I was able to throw and catch balls with both hands equally easily. Like I even tried difficult things. I'm like, what is this is new. So I know like our DNA is getting upgraded too.
Yeah.
Um, and the fact that I have like a tangible example of that is pretty cool because like I feel it.
Yes. Yes.
and and so like what I feel in our consciousness, and I've heard of the Hopi predictions, like the split world. What I feel is, yes, there are those that are consciously choosing to remember, and there are those that are going to have a rude awakening.
Well, and that's a choice too, and I think it's really important that we're thoughtful about languaging, that this is not blaming anybody for the situation
Oh,
that they're in. There is so much learning and so much that we move through. Like, how many of us who are in healing positions now have come to these places because we're healing our own woundedness?
mm,
That whole trajectory of the wounded
oh
healer.
yeah.
So we walk through our own valley of the shadow of death. And
Mhm.
and that's what initiations often are when somebody is on their healing journey or their medicine path. There are these really dark, shadowy places. And whether they belong to us individually or they belong to the collective, I think we navigate both of those in different iterations. And so I want to say, like, there is so much teaching in the difficulty if we choose to receive that, right? There is teaching about resilience, there is teaching about surrender, there is teaching about separation, there's teaching about the choice whether you're going to move into, is this happening to me or is this happening for me? I think that one word
Yeah.
changes the course of a life.
Hmm.
And that is not to say that terrible things don't feel terrible, because they do.
Right.
And tragedy is a tragedy. So I think, like, I don't want us to be all like love and light and joy, because the world is clearly in a birth process, and I've birthed a baby, and I've witnessed births, and I know this. It's messy, right? It's bloody. There's all kinds of bodily fluids that come out. There's screams, right? And I think that that is also part of the birthing process, that it can be really complex and complicated and painful as well.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I another word that I choose to use is, instead of I have to, I say I get to,
Yes. Yeah,
because that gives me the empowerment. And speaking back to the chaos, I mean, it's visceral.
it is.
I,
It,
I see it in how the animals are showing up and how people are showing up. And like on days where there are clouds that weren't predicted, um, I can feel a shift in how people show up.
yes. Yes.
And it's up to each individual to choose whether to be in a victim consciousness, which is really deeply ingrained in society.
Mhm.
There's no shame to it. Like when I came in, I found I recently, like a couple months ago, I'm like, okay, so let me get this straight. Like a victim consciousness, people pleasing, codependency, narcissism, and control. I got the big five, from ancestral, from my own soul, to inner stand, so I could show up for myself and then others with more compassion.
Exactly. Exactly. And I also think, like, those big five that you've named, I think they're also, there's the opportunity to catalyze that. Like, in the traditions that I hold dear, that I've been trained in, we think of healing as being multi-directional, so that if I am healing something in myself, a trauma in myself that could be from my maternal lineage, which there has been plenty of that, I actually have seen and felt and witnessed the healing going backwards, not just forwards. And who knows, like, if we are living on multiple timelines at the same time, maybe those beings, if they're in that other lifetime, are having a very different experience than they did in the one behind me. And
Mhm.
I feel like that's a mystery. That's a great mystery. And to be of service in that way, not just to ourselves, but to other beings,
Yeah.
um, is profound.
It's magical. It
It
really
is.
is, to be able to feel, because in my journey with my mom, there have been a lot of distortions,
Mhm.
and she didn't have the capacity to heal herself. So I've done a lot of the healing for both of us. And I remember at one point, I was guided to see her. She's in Wairika, and I was guided to ask to borrow a rosary from one of my girlfriends and wear it underneath my shirt. Then take my sacred Shasta water, which I had, and bless it before I walked in, and then put it on the rosary, and then place my fingers on mom's knee to give her the sacred energy. And she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Just don't worry." And then I started channeling stuff that she needed to hear, and she opened up to receive it. And the healing that we can do, even if it's remote, if it's in person, whatever it is so, like, because the veils are thinning so much, we can do this stuff much more easily than even like 5 years ago. Um, it's such a gift to be able to, through our beingness, shift consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah. And what a joy to do that in collaboration, isn't it?
It's really
Right?
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really fun. And then to witness another like your mom in that moment, to be in their opening, their awareness. And they might choose, like a flower at night, to close again, but that is a muscle, right? That awareness muscle is something we choose and we practice. And that's where the agency is. I think that's where I see so many people right now who are like, I don't know what this thing is, but there's something waking up and stirring in me. And what a
That's
beautiful
awesome.
conversation to jump into.
Yeah, that's beautiful, because, like, I mean, I felt it. Well, I've felt it my whole life too, but like I intentionally shut myself down because I grew up in Connecticut, But when Dad died and his soul scattered across the universe, I had the deep awareness of I don't know anything. And I have this great old PhD, but like that's nothing. Like, and it was so humbling and opening at the same time because he gifted me the opportunity to shift my consciousness.
Yeah. Wow. That's a beautiful legacy that your dad left for you. Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. And how comparative, right? As people who've pursued the academic career and know that in academia, it's about like putting down your stakes in the one small corner that is only yours, that nobody else has tended to yet, and saying, this is mine and this is my research. And, that becomes so narrow, like that perspective.
Yeah.
And you're trying to hold on to this tiny little micron of soil. I mean, I remember like how restrictive it is, right? And if you pop out and you and somebody else have a similar idea and you connect, you're like, oh my God, there's another being out there. I, you know, I was really clear that I did not want to become a professional researcher. Like I'm certainly a personal researcher. I still research to this day. I love digging into research and then using my skills that I learned on that way to assess quality or truth or merit. But it is just another tool, right? That's just another tool as compared to this vastness that we're invited, this playground we're invited to be in right now, that kind of holds all the things, and we're seeing all this. It's almost like that shifting card deck or those spinning wheels, like a different reality in every moment. I really feel like we can be doing this right now. You can shift through states of consciousness and reality. And sometimes it's a little odd, right? Like when you're saying when we're getting those solar flares, you're like, what's going on right now? Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely feel it because it's like, on those nights where I slept 2 hours, one of them, one of them was because one of my friends that I was staying with had a vibration plate, and she had me stand on it for 10 minutes, and I'd never done it before. So I detoxed a lot, like way more than my body was used to. I was having a blast. I was like, this is so much fun. I'm enjoying it. But like my whole body was like all night long. It was like just doing the detox thing. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Sorry. I didn't know I was that sensitive, but I am. And this morning when they were leaving, I felt the anxiety of the dogs.
Ah,
And I'm
uh-huh.
like, okay, I'm not taking that on. I'm not taking it on. I'm giving it to source because they don't need to have it either. I'm not gonna give it back to them. I'm just gonna give it to source. And then they quieted down.
So you could be the conduit for that.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I love that. And just remembering that as a practice, like we can hold the space and help people conduce their energies. Because what I know is that the earth is really like feeds off of some of that energies. And I'm sure that there are other aspects in the cosmos that do as well. But the earth is like, lean against a tree and ask the tree's permission. Can I release this to you? Can I release this burden that I'm carrying, this grief that I'm carrying? Can I lean into against you? And it's almost as if the tree has arms and says, yes, please, I can hold this and I can process this and we can turn it into soil. It's really beautiful.
oh yeah, the trees are just like they're so grounding, and they want to support us
Yeah.
because they already have that energy in them, and they don't have. I mean, when I tune into the ones that have been burned or clear cut, there is trauma, but most of them day to day they don't have trauma, which is I can't say that. They're Let me rephrase this. Most of them have the capacity to help us transmute our trauma. There we
Yes.
go.
Yes. And again, it's that relationship, right? Are we asking consent? I think I'm so grateful that we start using that word consent in the last few years, particularly around interpersonal relationships. And let's expand that to when you're cutting the flowers, are you asking your consent? I was out cutting daffodils to get today and I grabbed one. I said, do you want to come in? And it's like, no. I'm like, okay, then I'm not going to cut you. I'm going to move to the next one. Right.
Yeah.
And it's just that honoring relationship that is tender and sweet. I have houseplants, and I've learned, because I have a lot of different kinds of houseplants, that I just say, tell me when you need to be watered. And it
Mm.
takes the burden off of me, but it opens me up to being in that deeper listening relationship. And it's really fun.
I love that because really it is that relationship. It's not like I don't use I try really hard, depending on the consciousness of the person, not to use the word owner with an
Mm,
animal because you're not, you're steward.
beautiful.
Based
Yes.
on your consciousness, like some people truly like I paid for this dog or this cat or this whatever, so therefore I own them. Well, that's slavery.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's not a popular opinion. And there's not a lot of consciousness ready for that awareness, but it's true. It's like if you buy someone, regardless of what species it is, you have the perception that you own them.
Right.
When
Right.
in fact, I keep hearing the Hawaiian term kahu, which is beloved attendant and steward,
Mm.
and how they need us for food and shelter, but they want to be sovereign. And especially the younger ones, oh my God, their consciousness is like crazy, like powerful. Like the puppy I stayed with a couple of weeks ago, he was fully sovereign, and the trainer and the human were trying to make him into a dog.
Mm.
And I'm like fully aware of where he's at, and I'm stuck in this really strange relationship of like trying to listen to the humans when all I know what he specializes in running, magical. Like I've never seen a dog run like that. It's just beautiful, and that's one of his gifts is just that free expression. And because he bit through his e-collar, that wasn't a thing that I got to do with him very much. Literally bit through those. Yeah, that's the thing. So like, but like just that weird dynamic of me being able to see what he is versus where the consciousness of everybody else was at. It was really challenging for me because I was like, I don't know what to say because the person who was the human that lived with him did not have consciousness.
Mm.
Like she was very, very, very set in programs. So me
Mhm.
talking about the consciousness of Charlie and talking about the kidney meridian, she was like, yeah, no, I don't really care. I'm like, okay,
Mm. Yeah, well, being a bridge is not easy.
yeah,
Right. And I think that's what so many of us came here to do right now, is
yeah,
to be a bridge,
yeah.
right? Between these different worlds, between these different expressions and experiences. Um, yeah.
Yeah, it's true because like I notice even our conversation, I love big words. I just do because we have a great language. I mean, it's not the best language on the planet, but it does have pretty cool words. And so I've been told that I'm too erudite because I love our language.
Right.
And so to try to translate what I do and what I know into a language that is more comprehensive is something I'm learning.
Well, and I think that words have a frequency,
Mhm.
and they certainly have a history.
Yeah.
And what I'm feeling, that I'm also like you, perhaps maybe for a different reason, but I'm really feeling like I'm learning a new language about understanding the energy of the word that I use when I use it with intention.
Mm.
I'm like you, like, I mean, you can't go through a lot of schooling and not love big words. I think like they kind of go together. And, words do hold an energy. And I think it's like that saying, if you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you always gotten. And I think if we language things the way that we always have, it's going to be hard to break out of that paradigm. So I in my practice, I'm really consciously pausing in places so
Mm.
that I can download or activate or engage with the word that holds a frequency. And I failed physics, by the way. So I'm not like, I know that there's like stuff that I understand about energy and frequency, but it certainly is not from, any physics textbook.
Right.
Um, yeah. So I think like that is also part of this scaling up that
Mm.
we're witnessing, is this opportunity to relanguage ourselves.
I love that. Hmm.
Yeah.
So I know us. I know I can talk for a long period of time, and the dogs haven't been out for a walk today. So I'm going to ask you my final question, and that is, how do people find you?
Oh, yeah, thank you for that. They can find me at yourwisewoman.com. It's a website to just a landing place where you can learn a little bit more about me, a little bit about my offerings, and you can sign up and we can meet on Zoom. And if you have thoughts, ideas, questions, curiosities about working in these different liminal spaces, these thresholds, and meeting yourself in a new expression, I'm totally here for that. Yeah,
Mm,
it is such a joy and an honor to midwife people
mm.
through their own awakenings and emergences. It's really such a pleasure to be here and be in conversation, Sophia. I know like we could absolutely go on for hours, and we just took a turn that I didn't anticipate, and it's been so fun to be here with you today.
I never know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I want to thank you so much for your time, for your wisdom, for your beingness, and sharing space on the planet with me at this time in consciousness.
Thank you, Sophia. It's been an honor. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you to all the listeners.